Tonight, however, I have chosen to dwell for the most part upon an event without which England today would be a far different England from the one we know. I draw upon Adam Nicholson's stirring book, Men of Honor, Trafalgar and the Making of the English Hero. The year is 1805, the day, the 21st of October, the time, 5:50 a.m. High on the mainmast of the English fleet, in the first light of dawn, the lookouts sight the enemy. For a day and a night, Nelson has been shadowing the combined French and Spanish fleets, carefully maintaining a position well below the horizon to prevent the enemy from taking fright and running from the battle to come. All night long, every hour, on the hour, blue lights flash from Nelson's scouting frigates, the agreed signal that the enemy lies to leeward, just where Nelson wants him. Shortly thereafter, Nelson signals form order of sailing in 2 columns, the unorthodox attack formation that he has chosen for the long-sought conflict ahead. His next signal at 6:22 a.m. confirms what all have been expecting: prepare for battle. 20 minutes later, the French frigate Hermione, standing out to the west of her own battle fleet, signals her flagship, the Bucentaur, enemy in sight to windward. On that October day, the sky is a pale Neapolitan blue, streaked high with a scattering of white clouds, and it's warm for autumn. The wind is light, northwesterly, blowing no more than 10 knots, but that is enough. A man of war can sail with a breeze so slight it will barely cool the windward side of a licked finger. On that October day, the Battle of Waterloo lies 10 years in the future. The mighty Iron Duke, whose monument stands neglected on our Blackdown hills, is still a relatively junior general officer, his triumphant peninsular campaign still to come. Napoleon's army, the most formidable land force ever assembled, stands poised at Boulogne, ready for invasion. Vice Admiral Villeneuve, commanding the French fleet, need only rendezvous with the Spanish from Ferrol, collect the French squadrons from Rochefort and Brest, sail north, and with the British ships guarding the western approaches vastly outnumbered, Napoleon will dominate the Channel. The self-proclaimed emperor writes to Villeneuve, "The destiny of France lies in your hands. Make a start. Lose not a moment. Come into the Channel. We are ready. Everything is embarked. Be here but for the space of 24 hours, and England is ours." Time, 11:30 a.m. Distance from the enemy, 1 mile. Nelson had been below in his cabin. When he returned to the quarterdeck, he spoke to his flag lieutenant, John Pascoe. Many years later, Pascoe recalled the scene. "His lordship came to me on the poop, and after ordering certain signals to be made, about 1:45 he said to me, 'Mr. Pascoe, I wish to say to the fleet, England confides, every man will do his duty.' And he added, 'And you must be quick, for I have another signal to make, which is for close action.' I replied, 'If your lordship will permit me to substitute the word expects for confides, the signal will be sooner completed. For the word expects is in the flag vocabulary, but confides must be spelt out.' His lordship replied in haste with seeming satisfaction, 'That will do, Pascoe, make it directly.' The practical working admiral accepts the compromise, but Nelson's instinct for confides rather than expects was entirely fitting. It is the binding word. It represents the fleet's community of honor. And the England to which it appeals is a place where duty is a matter of trust, not of instruction or of subservience. Ship by ship, the fleet, which at least a third of the officers and a higher proportion of the men come not from England, but from Scotland, Wales, Ireland, and abroad, give 3 cheers as the message reaches them. This necklace of ideas, England, expectation, manhood, duty, will sustain Nelson's fleet in the horror and destruction which will soon engulf it. Time, 12 noon. Distance from the enemy, 1,000 yards. In 2 columns, 26 British ships of the line bear down upon the French and Spanish squadrons. Nelson knew that the battle outcome would be decided at its beginnings. The strongest ships, the 3-deckers, captained by men he knew and trusted from the long campaigns in the Mediterranean, head those 2 columns, with Victory and Collingwood's Royal Sovereign in the lead. It is the naval equivalent of a double heavy-armored thrust, strong enough to resist the devastating cannonade with which it would inevitably be met, and utterly cataclysmic to the enemy when it struck. Silence prevails as the men and boys stand by their guns. The galley fires are extinguished. Spark-proof screens made of a thick woolen cloth known as fear knot, fitted around the hatchways through which the powder would pass. Shot racks holding the 18, 24, and 32-pound cannonballs drawn out from under their coverings, the guns cast loose. In the near lightless depths of the orlop deck, the saws, knives, bandages, and tourniquets are in order. The surgeon's scalpels warmed in accordance with Nelson's specific instructions. The coldness of steel on the amputation of his arm in the Canaries was not something Nelson wished on any man. Time, 12:30 p.m., distance from the enemy, 500 yards. The wind is now more westerly, but dropping fast. The sea smooth, the sun shining on the newly painted sides of the French and Spanish warships. Around Nelson's Victory and Collingwood's Royal Sovereign, shot fall short alongside and pass overhead. A ball rips clean through Victory's main topgallant sail as 7 or 8 ships open fire on her, a heavy and unremitting cannonade. A ball carries away Victory's mizzen topmast. Another strikes and destroys her wheel. A double-headed shot, a heavy killing bar of metal, spins through the air, slicing lethally through a line of 8 Marines. Yet another ball smashes a launch, and a splinter flies towards Hardy and Nelson, walking on the quarterdeck, tearing the buckle from Hardy's left shoe. Both men instantly stop and are observed by nearby officers to survey each other with inquiring looks, each concerned that the other might be wounded. His lordship is seen to smile and heard to say, "This is too hot work, Hardy, to last long." The Victory has already suffered 20 dead and 30 wounded. The time is 12:45 p.m., contact with the enemy. The shot which had destroyed the Victory's wheel means she is now being steered by command shouted down to 40 men manning the tiller ropes in the gunroom below. But the wind has dropped entirely. Victory slows to the point of encounter. The slight bowing of the enemy line to north and south allows Victory to fire both broadsides with deadly effect. The whole ship and its massive timbers shudders with the reverberations. On the Victory's forecastle stands a pair of huge 68-pounder carronades, each loaded with a single large caliber round shot and a canister of 500 musket balls. The portside carronade fires straight into the stern windows of the Bucentaur. Its charge travels the length of the gun decks, a single avenging destroyer followed by a cloud of buzzing acolytes. As each of the 50 guns of the Victory's port's broadside comes to bear, they fire down that same open alleyway. Cast iron balls, 6 1/4 inches across, ricochet through the men and guns that lie on their path. A bowling arcade in which the humans are the ninepins. 20 of the great guns of the Bucentaur, each weighing nearly 3 tons, are turned over and made useless. Black smoke from the broadside rolls back into the gun decks on Victory. The dust from the smashed woodwork settles on the shoulders of Nelson and Hardy. Hundreds of men on the Bucentaur are killed or wounded. In the 2 minutes it's taken Victory to sail past its stern. In front of the Victory, the French 80-gun Neptune opens fire on Victory's bow. Splinters the size of pickaxe handles fly across the deck. The foremast is hit. The bowsprit struck, and the yards carrying the spritsails carried away. The weak structure of the bows takes a volley of round shot, each one slicing through the smoke-filled spaces between the decks. These are the moments in which the Victory has more men killed than at any other time. As Turner would later quite rightly paint it, the sea turns red from the carnage. A veritable storm of lethal metal engulfing the Victory's quarterdeck. Between 40 and 50 men are carried below at the same time as Nelson. Nelson is laid on a midshipman's berth, stripped of his clothes and covered with a sheet. As the recoil from another broadside shocks the air inside the battleship, Nelson murmurs, "Oh, Victory, Victory, how you distract my poor brain." One by one, the French and Spanish ships around Victory strike their colors. As they do, the men cheer, and at each new shout, Nelson asks what the noise means. He is intensely anxious about the battle's outcome. When Nelson was told that Hardy was coming to see him, he opened his eyes and sat up. They shook hands, and Nelson said, "Well, Hardy, how goes the battle? How goes the day with us?" "Very well, my lord," Hardy replied. "We've got 12 or 14 of the enemy's ships in our possession." "I hope," said Nelson, "that none of our ships have struck." "No, my lord," his captain answered, "there is no fear of that." At about 3:30 p.m., Hardy returned. Nelson struggled to sit up but slumped back, murmuring, "In a few minutes I shall be no more." And then more quietly, "Don't throw me overboard, Hardy." Hardy kneels to reply, "Of course he won't." "Take care of my dear Lady Hamilton," Nelson says. And then the famous words, "Kiss me, Hardy." Hardy kisses Nelson on the cheek, a kiss conveying a deep bond of service, honor, loyalty, and friendship. "Now I am satisfied," Nelson says. "Thank God I have done my duty." For a few minutes, Hardy stood, looking down at the man he so loved and admired. Nelson's eyes were closed, his mind no more than half aware. Again, Hardy knelt, this time kissing Nelson's forehead. "Who is that?" Nelson said, coming up to consciousness quickly. "It is Hardy," his captain answered. Nelson slumped back again and replied, "God bless you, Hardy." With that, the flag captain left for the quarterdeck, knowing he would never see his commander alive again. Hardy, Collingwood in the Royal Sovereign, Fremantle in the Neptune, Harvey in the Téméraire, Benton in the Leviathan, Harwood in the Belial, Duff in the Mars, Tyler in the Tonnant, Henry Blackwood in the Euryalus. These were the men whom Nelson trusted in the often brutal and fiercely destructive, yet always honorable defense of England's laws and liberty. These were the men Nelson called "my band of brothers," the title drawn from Henry's great St. Crispin's Day speech. It is a speech Nelson undoubtedly knew by heart, and to substitute the name Trafalgar for that of Crispian would not come far amiss. "He that outlives this day and comes home safe will stand a tiptoe when this day is named, and rouse him at the name of Crispian. He that shall live this day and see old age will yearly on the vigil feast his neighbors and say, 'Tomorrow is St. Crispian.' Then will he strip his sleeve and show his scars and say, 'These wounds I had on Crispin's day.' This story shall a good man teach his son. And Crispian shall ne'er go by from this day to the ending of the world, but we in it shall be remembered. We few, we happy few, we band of brothers. For he today that sheds his blood with me shall be my brother. Be he ne'er so vile, this day shall gentle his condition. And gentlemen in England now abed shall think themselves accursed they were not here, and hold their manhoods cheap, whiles any speak that fought with us upon St. Crispin's Day."